Hello and welcome to the Etoft21sports Show for March 19th. How is everyone doing? My name is Eric. I'm the man behind Etoft21sports. Absolutely loaded episode for you today. This is the March Madness preview. Gino and I are going to be going game by game, filling out a bracket, sharing any future bets we have, any first round bets we have. I am very pumped for this episode, one of my favorite ones of the year. But before we jump into all that, as always, the Etoft21sports Show is sponsored by Parlay Play. If you're not using Parlay Play, go to the App Store, download the Parlay Play app, and use promo code NFL Betting Blitz. Now, let's welcome to the show the man who's going to probably be up all night because his Dodgers, I think, play at 3, 4 a.m. Eastern. My boy Gino to the stage. Gino, how you doing, man?
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, I think it's at 3 o'clock Pacific time for me. So I'm pretty pumped on that one. And I'll be getting up and watching that one. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to take a nap a little bit before, then get up and then stay through. We'll figure it out. But I love that kind of stuff. And this is a great time because the next few days we'll be watching a lot of college basketball, playing games already starting. And I'm pretty excited, man. This is going to be a blast.
So there's one interesting question here that I want to jump into before we go into anything. I have a $25 free play on my account. Which future should I bet?
I'll give you two. You can pick which one you like better, or maybe they're both big ones. So you can maybe split it up and play, 10 and 15 or 12 and 12, however you like it. And they're on opposite sides of the bracket. So hopefully we can get them to the championship and play against each other. And then we know we'll have hit one of them at least. The first one is Creighton. I like Creighton quite a bit. I played him at 25-1 to win the whole thing. Creighton is super experienced. They're well balanced. That's one thing that I'll kind of talk about a lot, Eric. There are a lot of stats and numbers you can look at that just show you almost all of the teams that win it all are balanced. They have a defense that's like a top 20 defense, and they have an offense that's like, or the offense is like a top 20 offense, and the defense is at the very least a top 40. Like, you're just not having teams that have miserable defenses winning it all. It just doesn't happen that way. You usually have to be really well balanced to get through. I like teams that have experience. You look at Creighton, they have a ton of experience coming back from last year. They were one play away from a Final Four last year, and I think they have a pretty good spot. I sort of like their bracket. In my opinion, the East bracket is the most difficult. I'll have another team coming out of there, but Creighton's a team that I like. I've making a deep run, Eric, and then the other one was Auburn. Auburn was 22-1. Auburn is in a brutal little bracket there with UConn, Florida Atlantic, San Diego State, all right there, and then even Iowa State right below them. But Auburn has size. Auburn has speed. Auburn has the type of roster that I think could give UConn some trouble. And watching them all throughout the year, they've always been a team that's been really highly regarded by a lot of the advanced metrics, a lot of the Bart Havik and Ken Palm, and a lot of the net ratings and things like that. So those are two teams that I'll be playing a few bucks to win on. I got my buddy out in Vegas, and I sent him a little bit of money to play a couple futures for me.
I like it. My one is, if I had to bet just one, I would say give me juicy Colorado 11-1 to make the Sweet 16. That would be mine. Couple. I hate the Lakers. What's up, boys? Cool Kev, Gino, cheers.
Let's do it.
I hate the Lakers. Gino, are your boys going to make the playoffs?
Yeah, man. The key is, for me, the whole year, all year long, getting the 8. The difference between the 8 and the 9 is so massive. Because if you're the 8 seed, all you have to do is win one game. You have 2 games to just try to win one. If you are the 9 or the 10, you have to win 2 games in a row to get in. That's just difficult. I think if the Lakers can make it to the 7 or 8 spot, I'm super confident that they'll get it in the playoffs, and that they'll, be very competitive in a series. If they get that 9-10 spot, anything can happen in one game. And then you're in a game with the Warriors and Steph Curry. That's a scary spot to be in. So for me as a fan, I will feel very confident if they get up to the 8 line. But if they're not 7 or 8, they're going to be in a little bit of trouble.
So we're obviously here to talk some bracket. We're going to be looking back at the NCAA bracket, everything. But before that, we want to touch on the selection. Both you and I really weren't too pleased with the committee. Sports Facts has a question before we jump into our takeaway. How the hell did the Big East only get 3 schools?
Yeah, that was one that was coming out. Their coaches are absolutely furious. They had the bottom of the Big East was bad this year, so that brought down kind of that middle part. But I think they probably have two different teams that you could have had complaints about because they performed well against some of the top tier teams here. So Big East, and then for me, the way we select the teams now. Most of the teams finish on Saturday, their regular season or their season tournaments. Some finish Friday, most finish Saturday, and then there's a few on Sunday. What bothers me is you can see that they have almost things set like on Saturday a lot of the time. And then the results of those games, they don't matter at all. And you can see teams that have actually won their conference tournament or teams that either lost and maybe had a bad loss. It doesn't impact them at all. I think it might be better to have everybody end on Saturday, and then you give the committee all Saturday night and all Sunday until 6:00 Eastern, the same time, and then they release the bracket. That way, they've got that full extra day to where they have no excuses. We should be able to see better seating. This bracket this year, I mean, every year there's going to be complaints. There were like 4 or 5 teams that were like very oddly seated. Way overseeded, sort of underseeded, and then a couple teams missing. I thought this was, of the last few years, I thought this was one of the weaker brackets just overall, the way it was all set up.
Yeah, I mean, you got Dayton in it, doesn't have a win over the Brett or over any team in the field. You have how the heck is New Mexico and Duquesne's or whatever, the Dukes on the same seeding line?
On the line?
Really doesn't make sense.
No. You could have flipped very easily James Madison and Duquesne, right?
Yeah.
Like, or a team like that. Like it seemed to me like they had that spot for the conference, and then they just slotted Duquesne in there, right? And
they had it set, and whatever was going to be was going to be. It's almost like if VCU would won that game, they were there. It's like,
and that would have made sense, 100%, absolutely.
My takeaway, and they're losing right now. I have Colorado State -1.5. Virginia should not be in the tournament. I've been saying this for 2 weeks now. 69th in KenPom. These are the teams that are ahead of them. K-State, Butler, Princeton, Maryland, Bradley, Washington, Seton Hall, UCF, Vatech, Xavier, Providence, Iowa, Utah, Ohio State, Indiana State, Oklahoma, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Wake Forest. And wait for it, St. John's, who's 44 spots ahead of them on KenPom. 54th in the net rankings. Ohio State, Utah, Wake Forest, Villanova, Pitt, St. John's. We have all these data points now, which shows who they won, how good these teams are. And they just totally said, you know what? Virginia's on their name. They won the title a couple years ago. They're come from a Power 5. They're going to be in. And you know what? All you other guys, St. John's, Indiana State, sorry, boys, you guys are out. And I didn't like that at all. There's no way Virginia should be in this tournament.
Right now they have, 14 points with about a minute left to go in the half?
There was a stretch where they were, God, what were they? They were averaging 17 points a game for the first half.
Just still, like you said, living off a little bit of reputation. Have they won a tournament game since their NCAA championship year? I don't think so.
I don't think they have.
I don't think they've won a tournament game, and we remember the big, obviously the big defeat was one of the ones as a high seed for them. But that to me was probably one of the most glaring, where I felt maybe St. John's, you just flip flop them. I mean,
well, my boy Sports Facts. God, I love this guy. Always talks shit to me. When does Oklahoma State play? They don't play in November, buddy. They are off for a little bit. Matt, we're going to be getting into this, but what 12-team moves on? UAB, JMU, McNeese, or Grand Canyon? We will get to that in a little bit. Bobby was in Chicago this weekend. I told him not to go down to the city.
Right.
He did not listen. NAA 86. Does Kansas go down in the first round with McCullough out? You know what? We will be getting to that in a little bit. So let's bring up the bracket here. We're going to be going ESPN. Obviously, we're going to start off in the East. We have UConn and Stenson. Obviously, Stenson, 342 defensively. They can shoot, but let's be honest. They're not getting through here, are they?
No, I will say one of the things that jumped out at me as we start in the East bracket is UConn was supposed to be the number 1 overall seed. And looking at the bracket, I mean, they got to stay in the East bracket, but they are in the same quarter bracket with 2 of the other Final Four teams from last year. Yeah. Florida Atlantic and San Diego State. So both of those teams, just because of their experience and what they went through last year, you probably feel like they're like a high 9, like a pretty powerful seeded 8 and a pretty powerful seeded 5 because of their experience. Then Auburn's like a top 5 team in KenPom.
Yeah.
They've been like top 10 in almost all metrics this year, and they're the 4. And then you've got Iowa State, who I think is the highest of the 2s. They just beat the crap out of Houston, and they won their conference tournament. And these are kind of the things that I mean. Like how, when I'm looking at them, I would have put Iowa State on a 1 line instead of North Carolina based on what Iowa State did recently. They had some really strong wins as of late. So I think this is a brutally difficult bracket. You also have a team like, Illinois, who they can beat anybody because of how well they can score and offensively, how powerful they are. Defensively, I don't trust them winning 4 or 5 games in a row against good opponents, but they're certainly capable of beating anyone on any given day. This, to me, was by far the most difficult bracket of all. And for UConn, getting the number 1 overall seed, okay, cool. You're a 26-point favorite against Stetson. And then you're going to play maybe a team that was a Final Four team last year in Florida Atlantic that really won't be all that scared of you. So I didn't think they got a great draw for the number 1 overall.
Yeah, I agree 100%. But we're going to have them go on next round. We got FAU Northwestern. My thoughts on this game: Northwestern, no depth. Nicholson got hurt. That's another injury they have to deal with. I feel like FAU's gone through the motion all year. They're just waiting for the tournament. Northwestern not good on the glass. Golden will get some offensive rebounds. The big thing when I looked at their metrics is FAU's defensive efficiency is extremely down this year compared to where it's been. Obviously, you have to hit threes to win. That's going to be the big thing for Northwestern. Can Bowie get going, make some threes? Barry's a little banged up. And how motivated will FAU be in this game? To me, this is truly a coin flip game. So what are your thoughts, and who do you think advances?
Yeah, I think the game is like a 1 point either way. I would lean FAU too. I think they just have like you were pointing out, a little more size, a little more depth, a little more experience. And I think they will get up for this game. As you pointed out, it is a little difficult sometimes for these teams that make such a deep run. And then the dynamic is different. Like Florida Atlantic last year, they snuck up on everybody. But then as you come back this year, and it's not the same. Now people know who you are when you go out and play them. They're expecting you. And so they probably got a better punch from a lot of opponents this year. I still think they'll show up, and I actually think they'll provide a little bit of trouble for UConn. I think UConn will still get through them, but they have some size there and some experience. So I don't think it would be the easiest, but I would move Florida Atlantic, and then I have UConn beating them.
All right, so we're going to go Florida Atlantic here. Let's go down here. Let's finish this first round. San Diego State, UAB. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think UAB is probably going to be a pretty popular 12-5 pick. I like San Diego State a little bit, though. I think they're pretty tough. Just experienced and well coached. I would move them along. Pretty chalky for me with San Diego State here, and nothing too crazy in this quarter bracket. I actually had, I think, all the higher seeds moving on.
So you're going San Diego State here. San Diego State defense, I don't think UAB has anyone that can stop Ledee. Game may be tight a little bit with the way UAB plays, but I think San Diego State is moving
because they don't blow you out enough, so it could be like a close game, but defensively they're so good. And if you are sloppy at all, or if you're a little bit turnover prone, they're just going to crush you.
I actually have a bet in this game, in this next one coming up with Auburn Yale. Auburn grades out very exceptionally offensively, grades out good defensively. But Yale has a 7-footer that can drift away from the basket. I think that's going to create some issue with them with how they like to play. Auburn's, their defense lives on creating turnovers. Yale's guards are very experienced. They don't turn over the ball. And for me, what I look at in these tournament games, it's a thing where it's like, hey, you know what? You have a team that plays extremely slow and is a very good three-point shooting team. That's what Yale is, and that's what I kind of look about. I think everyone's going to say Auburn's athletic. I don't think their athleticism is as high as where it's been as in years past. Yale has experience. I don't think they're going to turn over the ball. I didn't bet the money line, but I did take Yale plus the 13.
Yeah, that's a big number too. It's a big number for a team that shoots well enough and can hit enough threes, like stylistically, to where even if they're down late by 18 or 20 and you can hit some threes and backdoor cover. I do think that it will probably be one of those games where I wouldn't be shocked if it's just like a tie game at half at all.
And then Auburn pull away in the second
and then
half.
they just sort of pull away and wear them down a little bit. But Yale's the type of team that's smart, that plays well, that doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes early. And then what ends up happening is, like, the longer they can stay competitive, then they can keep playing their game. Once you get down a little bit, then you try to start forcing things, and that's when the turnovers come in, and that's when it's harder to play your smart game. But I don't mind that at all. And I think Auburn's the type of team who I like. The reason why I talked about Auburn is I like Auburn in a situation where they'll go and play against a team like UConn and moving forward. So I like them when they'll be underdogs in a lot of spots because I think they can punch up. I would not like backing them as a big favorite. They're the type of team I would always play against laying a huge number like they're laying there with 13 and a half.
Wizzo 45. Who's the sleeper? Use your sleeper Final Four pick this season.
For me, it was the two Auburn and Creighton are my two that aren't probably going to be on everyone else's Final Four. So I'll give you those two that are a little outside the box for me.
Junior tennis coach, what round are you hedging your New Mexico future? I'm going to let that one ride. I got New Mexico, I think, at like 150. No, I got 150, 100 to 1 to win it all. I'm going to let that one ride. Let's make some money. Let's see the legal pad. Legal pad's right here, buddy. I don't go anywhere without my legal pad this type of year. Nick chimes in. I'm jumping in late. Not sure if you guys assessed it yet, but can't wait to hear your thoughts on Marquette. We'll be getting to Marquette soon. Let's pick off where we left off. We got the Dukes against BYU. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I thought Duquesne was overseeded. BYU offense is fantastic. They can push it. Yeah, to me, this is BYU. I think they're just too overwhelming offensively.
So it's something like I heard this, okay? This was at BYU was actually supposed to be the 5 seed, and they were actually, oh my God, who are they supposed to play? What team was it? They're actually supposed to play McNeese. So they moved down a seed line and get a way better matchup, which is absolutely crazy. This was actually supposed to be Gonzaga. For me, in this game, BYU can shoot. Dukes give up a lot of threes. BYU's not going to go 3 for 21 again from beyond the arc like they did in the Big 12. I don't think we need to outthink the room. I think we both have BYU here. I got a bet here, my friend. Let's hear it. What are your thoughts here with Illinois?
Illinois, Morehead State. I mean, I was pointing out Illinois, Morehead State, Riley Minix, 23-year-old transfer. He played 4 years of NAIA, shot one of those years like 50% from 3 on like 8 attempts from 3. This dude is a legit player from Morehead State. So if Illinois does not come out shooting, they could be in a little bit of trouble here. This guy is a very good college player, and I wouldn't be shocked if you were going to mention him and talk about them a little bit.
So what I did is, for me, Illinois reminds me of that Iowa team from a couple years ago where they won the tournament, lost to Richmond first year. This team is absolutely putrid defensively, and they're playing a Morehead team that plays slow. So there's going to be limited possessions. And if Illinois is very sloppy on the defensive end, this plays right into what Illinois is going to be able to do. Moorhead has the size, has the athleticism to keep up with Illinois. They have Moore, Mixon, Tezwell, and Thomas. All can fill. All these guys can shoot. So they're going to have enough points to keep up with Illinois. And more importantly, Moorhead can defend. So we have a slower paced team that plays great defense. I bet Moorhead State plus 13.5, and I have them plus 650.
Nice.
I think they're very live here.
Well, here's the thing. I have no problem picking them because I have BYU and winning the next game anyways. So this would be the type of a place where I would have no problem picking an upset because I don't have Illinois going very far, moving on. So even if they were to lose, like to win this game, it wouldn't hurt my bracket a whole lot because I like BYU in the next spot anyways. So let's pick Moorhead.
All right, we're going Moorhead. Next round, we got Drake and Washington State. So real quick, I'm letting everyone know Washington State got screwed. This game is literally 2 hours away from the Drake campus, a de facto home game. Drake has that
guy's a stud. DeVries
can rebound, score. DeVries. Drake shoots threes 40% of the time. Washington State's going to look to control the pace. The big thing that sticks out to me, though, is this is basically Drake's same team from last year. Remember, they played Miami. Everyone was saying they're going to beat Miami. They're up big, blew it at the end. I think this is a home game. I think Drake, with the experience, I think Drake comes through here. I actually got him on the money line minus 105. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, this was one of my more difficult games. I leaned slightly Washington State just because I was actually very impressed with them all throughout the year in the Pac-12. Pac-12 was not very strong, but this was a team that was not supposed to be quite as good as they were. And they kind of have a fun feel-good story. One of their players was sick and was out, and he's come back, and he's been fantastic. Not a really strong opinion, though, one way or the other for me. I have no problem going with moving on with Drake if you want to put Drake along.
Next game, Iowa State and South Dakota State. This is my notes. The Summit's been bad all year. The Summit League, for those who don't know that.
Because South Dakota State's been sort of a sneaky team in the tournament some years, but I don't think this is one of them. Using one of the really good advanced metric sites, Bartovic, since February 1st, so we're talking a good sample size now, 6 weeks, Iowa State is the number 3 ranked overall team based on their metrics, the number 1 defensive efficiency. The difference between the number 1 and number 2 team in defense, so Iowa State's number 1, the difference between them and the team that's second is the same difference as the team between the difference between the second and the 16th team. So they are that much better than everybody else. They have been incredible as of late. I have Iowa State moving on. I think they're actually a little underrated offensively. Gilbert, Lipsy, Momcilovic all can make plays and can have a big game. So I think they're a little sneaky.
We're gonna take Iowa State through next round. We got UConn FAU. So this is my thing, and you kind of hitting in it for a little bit. With the way FAU plays and how big and physical their guards are, I think this could be an issue for UConn. I kind of feel like Pitino and St. John's laid out the blueprint in the Big East. You got to get the big man in foul trouble. You got to look to push the pace and run and challenge the athleticism of UConn's guards.
Yeah.
I'm going to bet FAU this game.
I was going to say, I'm definitely going to be betting FAU. I was just going to say the same thing.
But I don't think they will win it. I think
me neither. I think UConn's deep, man. That's the problem. It's like they're really deep. They can hit you in different ways. And I think they can wear down FAU eventually, but I'll be betting. What do you think that line would be?
Probably 6.5.
Yeah, that makes sense. If it was anything under, if it was anything over like 5.5, I'm betting
it. UVA has 14 points a half.
Here we go.
San Diego State, Auburn. I'll let you take the point on this one. Where's your head at?
This is where I went Auburn, just because both of these teams are very good defensively, but Auburn is just better offensively, I think, overall. I look at what Auburn can do with Broome, then with Jalen Williams, Baker Mazzara, even Denver Jones. I think they have some really nice offensive firepower. As I pointed out, Auburn's one of the teams that I always try to pick. I'm never going to go into a bracket. I'm sure you're the same way, where I'm going like all ones, and I'm always going to find a couple teams that I like based on their matchups, their draw, and I'll ride them. For me, Auburn was one of those teams this year. So as far as you want to take them, I will take them, because I actually have them winning a couple more games and upsetting. But I think they'll get by this game, because I think they're just more well-balanced than San Diego State, where they're going to try to lean on their defense a little bit more.
So we'll take Auburn here. Next round, we got BYU against Morehead State. But for me, this is interesting, because we saw BYU, when they can't make threes, is very hard offensively to score.
Yeah, they're beatable, super beatable.
But we've seen this before, when a low seed like a Morehead State beats a high seed, complete crab fest
the next time.
round.
Right? It's like they spit it out after that first game.
You have BYU advancing here. You know what? They played in the Big 12. I think Morehead State will be a little bit flat after beating Illinois, so we'll go BYU. This is an interesting game, because the one thing that Iowa State has struggled with is when they've played against a guy that can just take over a game.
One guy like this, like a DeVries. So if this is DeVries here, what
Drake has. And this is going to be, it wouldn't surprise me if this is a Drake crowd. You know what I mean?
Sure.
With how close they are to Drake. And I always look to fade these teams that win the conference tournament. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be betting Drake, but I think Iowa State gets through.
Yeah, that probably similar for me. Iowa State is one that I've continued to be really, really impressed with just as of late. Number one in the last 6 weeks in the entire country in creating turnovers. So against a team like this, right, they will make life difficult on DeVries. And if he's not playing sharp, they're going to make him turn the ball over a few times, right? Doubling him, trying to get the ball out of his hand, making other guys beat them at least a little bit. And they're 11-3 in their last 14 games against a pretty tough schedule and a pretty tough stretch. I think they can still get through with one more, but this is probably the same as UConn, where I don't like Iowa State in situations where they're laying points. Like, I'm never betting them in that situation. I'm betting them when they're in a game where it's a small spread or they're an underdog in that game. And I think they can keep it close and their defense will shine, but they're not the type of team that is like a great Kentucky is the type of team that you wouldn't mind laying points with sometimes, because they blow teams out. They score 100 points, right? Iowa State's not going to do that.
Oh, not at all. Before we get into this, I just need to point out to you, the last time a 1 and 2 seed met in the Elite Eight was in 2019 with Michigan State and Duke. So we're going into UConn Auburn. I think you have Auburn advancing here, from based on what you were talking about earlier.
I did. Yeah, I myself have Auburn moving on. I think this is the game that I really want to bet if we get to this point, because I think with Broome and then with the other guys that they can throw at Connecticut, I think this is a bad matchup for Connecticut. And I think they will really keep this game close. And yeah, I like Auburn in this spot. I really do. I think they're pretty battle tested this year. And I pointed out, if I were UConn, man, I would have loved to flip flop with North Carolina. You know where they are?
Carolina.
Absolutely.
Wide open.
Yeah.
BYU, the Cyclones. Who do you got?
This would be a really fun matchup, right? As far as just two completely different types of teams. If they were to match up, you get the offense of BYU and then the defense of Iowa State, which is the best in the country. And I think in that situation, Eric, I usually lean defense because I think it's just more consistent. It's just more safe. You can trust it a little bit more. And you pointed out, if BYU is cold in this game, Iowa State's fine with that. They have plenty of stretches where they don't have to score and they're not that's not going to bother them at all. I had Iowa State. This was exactly my Elite Eight. I had Iowa State, Auburn in the quarterfinal, or in the final for the East.
And who do you have coming out?
I had Auburn coming out of the same sort of thing. Looking at Auburn, why in each of these matchups, why I think I compare Iowa State to probably San Diego State. Those two teams are very good defensively. But the thing about Auburn is they're also good defensively. So they are just more balanced than some of these teams who maybe they're not as good defensively as Iowa State, but they can hit you way more on the offensive side. So that balance is really what I'm looking for in teams that I'm trying to find go game to game to game to game. I had Auburn moving on, and I had Auburn in the national championship. We're going to talk about that in a minute.
Next one, we have North Carolina against Wagner.
Yeah, I had it moving on.
Hey, I'm just letting you know the last 2 seasons. Tournament wins, NEC 2, North Carolina 0. I'm just saying that. I have no idea why there's balloons going up in my screen right now.
There we go.
But we'll go North Carolina.
And we've seen what? We've seen one top 2 seed the last 3 tournaments go down.
Yep. So these are my boys. I'll give my 2 cents on this game. I got Michigan State on the money line. Izzo 13-3 straight up in the first round of the tournament. Mississippi State is led by Hubbard. MSU is a top 10 defense guarding field goals, where Mississippi State likes to live. It's going to make life really hard for him. Mississippi State really doesn't shoot that many threes. All their offenses ran inside the arc. That's where Michigan State is elite defending. Like I said, one of the top 10 teams in the country in 2-point defense. The big thing for me is Michigan State going to be able to rebound and limit Mississippi State? I really think they are. I trust Hogard and Walker, the 2-headed guard monster, and Akins of Michigan State. Also, we're starting to see Izzo trust Booker a little bit more. We need to remember at the end of the Purdue game, down by 3, he ran a play for Booker to get the open look. This is the guy they need to trust more going into the tournament. He's going to be playing at the next level. I think Michigan State gets through here, man.
I do too. Yeah, I do too. I agree. I have Michigan State moving on.
All right. So now this is the part where I get a little funky, dude. This is the part where I get a little funky. St. Mary's and Grand Canyon. Let's hear what you have. And then
it's funny. Initially, I had both St. Mary's and Gonzaga losing in the first round. I went back and looked at a little bit of both of them, and I flipped it. But Grand Canyon is one team that I wanted to get there. The concern I have, though, is looking at St. Mary's. They really do have experience. I do really like Mahaney, and they also have some size. And they can play defense, which is going to make life difficult, I think, for some of these teams that aren't used to playing a defense like St. Mary's is capable of putting out there. But it sounded like you're getting a little crazy here. It sounded like you're liking Grand Canyon, who, I mean, again, we're talking about a point spread that was only 4.5 in spots 5-ish. So right there, they tell you that this is not supposed to be a big.
Cool Kev, dude. You know where I'm going, my friend. I like Grand Canyon here. St. Mary's very good defensively, but their best athletic wing, Jefferson, got hurt. He's out for the year. I really don't think they have anyone in a one-on-one defense that can take on Grant Foster. He's going to be the best player on the court by a significant margin. So Grand Canyon has that player that can go one-on-one and get a bucket. Who's going to control the pace? Grand Canyon is going to like to push it. St. Mary's is going to like to slow it down. But the big thing is they played San Diego State earlier in the year, so they're used to this. They did beat San Diego State earlier in the year. Grand Canyon is exceptionally good, one of the best teams in the country at drawing fouls. I think they're going to be able to get St. Mary's in some foul trouble. Very good guarding the 3. So St. Mary's, team that likes to play slow, not going to be able to shoot threes, living by the 2s. I think this is a great matchup. I think missing Jefferson is going to be huge. They don't have anyone to check Grant Foster. I took Grand Canyon here plus the 5.5 and plus 195. So are we moving them on? Are we doing
it? Dude, I don't mind. I see the reason why too, when I was looking at this bracket, why I moved them on, because I'm anti-Alabama. Because to me, Alabama defensively is one of the worst teams in the entire bracket. So I'm concerned about them. I thought St. Mary's would beat Alabama because I thought Alabama wouldn't be able to. I thought Alabama would have a tough time against a defense like that because they can't play any defense whatsoever. So whoever was going to win here, I would have moving on one more game is all I was going to say. So, because
that's one of my futures, Grand Canyon plus 600 to the Sweet 16.
Well, there you go. So move them on twice. So, because it sounds like in the first, go ahead. So, do you have Alabama beating Charleston, or do you have Charleston upsetting them there?
I bet Charleston plus 10.5. I didn't bet them on the money line though. Bama can't defend, 112th in KenPom defensively. Both teams like to play fast. Both teams tied 23-point rate. Bama has struggled away from home this year. Charleston does attack the rim a little bit better via the analytics than Bama. Charleston, they're going to be able to run and score. They're going to be able to keep up with them. Bama had 3 games where they allowed 100.
This is the last stretch of games for Alabama this year. They lost. They beat Florida 98-93. They lost to Kentucky 117-95. They beat Mississippi, but they still allowed 88 points in that game. They lost to Tennessee. They allowed 81. They allowed 105 when they lost to Florida. They beat Arkansas in overtime 92-88, and then they lost allowing 102 points to Florida. So they got beat by Florida 2 out of the last 3 games and allowed 100-plus points to them both times. Their only win in the last 4 games came in overtime against Arkansas, who is 107th in KenPom.
Yeah. Charleston, they could have beat San Diego State last year, 5 of 24 from 3. I really think this is a bounce back for them. I think this is close. I think to me, this is a true coin flip. But based on what you've been saying, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Absolutely. And this is when you're building your bracket. If there are the teams that you don't have going very far, that's when you really pick your upsets. Because if we both didn't like Alabama moving on more than one more game anyways, then absolutely, this is where you try to zig when everyone else is going to zag.
Next game, really interesting game. My Lobos.
Your Mexico Lobos. How about this stat for you? This is the one that I don't know if you have this one here. There have been 11 instances when the number 11 seed has been favored over the number 6 seed. In those times, the 11 seeds are 10-1 straight up. They've won 9 of those games by double digits. So when the team is favored, it's telling you that that's the better team. They've won 10 of the 11 times, and 9 of them, they've beat the other team by double digits and kicked the crap out of them. I have New Mexico winning 2 games. I think this team reminds me of Richmond, right, from last year, who had all those, you had a bunch of veteran guys, kind of sleptwalk through a lot of the year. They won their tournament, and then you knew they were going to punch up whoever they played, and they were going to be really tough out. And this team they have Jalen House, Mashburn, Toppin. They just won 4 games in 4 days. They can play fast. They're talented. They're just better than an 11-seeded team, and they catch a very wide open bracket where, honestly, 2 games or 3 games would not shock me at all, because Arizona and Baylor are certainly teams that have high ceilings but low floors. We just said the same thing about Alabama, the same thing about St. Mary's. These are not trustworthy teams in the 2, 3, 4, 5 spots. We've got Clemson as the 6th seed, losing to them already. So go through this entire bracket, and there's not a lot of teams you trust in here. I have no reason to be against New Mexico winning a couple games.
Bobby Thomas, did you see House's dad at the end of the game versus STU? I don't know if you saw it, but he was like, "That's my effing kid," right? I'm going to say this. House is going to be a guy that everyone falls in love with or everyone hates it. I don't know if you saw this at the end of the game against San Diego State. he didn't go and celebrate with his team. He went up to the stands and he started talking trash. I've watched so much New Mexico basketball. The one thing he does is he picks out a fan in the stands and he just talks trash to him the whole day. I absolutely love this team. I don't think Clemson is athletic enough at the guard position to keep up with House, Mashburn. And everyone's forgot about Dent too. Dent was ill.
He was sick. Yeah.
West, so he should be healthy. That's a good 300 guard monster. Toppin should be able to take care of Hall underneath. So let's go through New Mexico here. Baylor, Colgate.
I had Baylor getting through here against Colgate. I think it's like a 13.5 point spread.
Yeah, this isn't your Colgate from years past.
No, not at all.
They don't have the scores. They don't have the athletic guards as before.
No.
Baylor does struggle defensively, but offensively they should get what they want. Next game here, very interesting game.
Yeah, this one is.
Here, Dayton in altitude, but they play slow.
And this team is not the same team since Smith got hurt.
Flip side, since Smith getting hurt, they only play 6. Nevada allows a lot of threes, and Dayton likes to shoot them. Nevada good at getting to the line. To me, this is a true coin flip game. Whichever team shoots the 3 better is going to win. I don't think pace is going to be an issue because it's going to be a slower pace game, and this altitude won't be an issue at all in this game. So to me, this is a coin flip. What say you?
Yeah, I think I like Nevada just a little bit more. Blackshear, Lucas, Coleman. They're in tournament play. They're really switchy, right? They got size all over. I think I'm not saying this is going to happen. Would you be shocked if we got New Mexico versus Nevada down here? I mean, like, I don't think that's that insane.
Blackshear is good. We need to remember Lucas was on the team. My Oregon State Beavers, one of the best futures I ever hit when they won the Pac-12.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't surprise me at all.
And they're in the West too, right? So they're super local. They're I have them winning this game, and then to me it would be the conversation against Arizona, who is another one of those teams that super high ceiling when Caleb Love's playing well, and they have a young kid like KJ Lewis who has been really playing well towards the last stretch of the season, and then Ballo kind of knows his role, and they have a good 6 or 7, but then damn, I can't help but get out of my head my USC Trojans, who are not good, beating the crap out of Arizona just 2 weeks ago, So that's another thing that's difficult. I don't think they have any problem getting through the 15 spot here, though. Long Beach State, who fired, shout out to Long Beach State. I'm like 5 minutes away from where I live, from Long Beach State. They fired their coach, and they made the tournament after firing their coach before their in-season tournament. And it's hilarious. Like, when I drive down the street, because of where Long Beach State is located, there isn't like a real campus for like housing, for student housing. So there's no like frat row or anything. So there are frat and sorority houses just in the middle of the neighborhoods. Like, so you're like going to Ralph's, and then right across the street, there's a frat house for Long Beach State. It's hilarious. Yeah. I saw some kids at Ralph's one time. They were obviously just on some good stuff, whatever they were on, and they were walking around the parking lot in circles, just over and over and over again. I was like, I remember those days.
That's awesome. Let's make some money. 37-18 Colorado State. I'm thinking, don't mean to jinx it. I think my -1.5 is looking good. Let's go up here to the top of the bracket. I'm going to make my case for Michigan State here. They have the guard play. They have Cooper, Bullen, Cisco, Hall. They have multiple people that they can roll at North Carolina. If you can make Babcock uncomfortable like NC State did, this is a winnable game. Michigan State does profile a lot like NC State. They have a big and Hall that can go underneath. They do shoot the 3 well, and they have 2 guards in Hogard and Walker that can score. I have Michigan State going through here.
I'm telling you, of all the brackets, I have no problem doing whatever you honestly want to do in this bracket, because I I had St. Mary's beating Bama, but then probably losing to North Carolina. But I'm not, if you want to go Michigan State there, let's do it, because I do not trust North Carolina at all. And I don't trust any of the top seeds in this bracket. So, like, let's go Michigan State, man. I'm rooting for you.
Right here we got Grand Canyon, Charleston. This is gonna be a fast game. How I look at this is Grand Canyon is gonna have the best player in Grant Foster. I'm gonna give them the edge. Agree. They're good at drawing fouls and get Charleston in some foul trouble. We'll go Grand Canyon here. New Mexico, Baylor. I'll let you take the point on this one, my friend.
I have New Mexico winning this game in my own bracket. Baylor's the type of team that they win 1-2 games almost every tournament, but they're defensively, I don't trust them. And this New Mexico team is a well-balanced team. They are very good. I don't think it was crazy that they won, the tournament. They won the 4 games in 4 days. And let's go to Mexico. I know you're riding them to the Sweet 16. I'm riding with you, man.
I think that you hit the nail on the head. Drew's going to play that defense, but this defense has been putrid. He's going to drop back in that zone. Just been awful. Offensively, they're doing great. Defense has really struggled. Nevada and Arizona, interesting matchup. What say you, my friend?
Yeah, I did go Arizona on my bracket. I would bet Nevada in this game. And
for sure I'll bet Nevada.
100%. And sure. If you wanted to go Nevada moving on, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I did go AZ. The way I ended up going AZ into the Final Four through this bracket, just because I think with Love, I kind of trust him the most, especially if they were to get to that Arizona, North Carolina matchup. I think you'd see a really good game for him. That's the way they try to set this bracket up. That's sort of what they try. And that's why it's kind of soft, because they wanted to get North Carolina and Arizona to that game.
They wanted to get that matchup. I agree 100%. I don't think New Mexico, I think this is where the run ends.
Yeah.
I think House is great defensively, but I think Love's going to be able to get them in foul trouble, and they don't have the size to keep Arizona off the boards. Top half of the bracket, look, call me a homer if you want. I think this is when the Cinderella story of Grand Canyon ends and Michigan State gets through.
And here's this: maybe we're picking the wrong team with Michigan State in this bracket to do that. But let me just point 2 things out. This is the bracket to pick a team like Michigan State, right? A high-seeded team to move on, because we don't think these are the trustworthy top seeds. And 2, you have obviously a coach who's experienced, who's it's a good spot for them. And I don't think you look in some of the other brackets and it's going to be quite as easy to get through. So I think for 2 different reasons that we want to go with Michigan State. Let's do it, man. Let's go.
But that I have their run ending here.
Arizona moving to the Final Four.
Arizona has Love, and we've kind of seen Michigan State when they do play an explosive guard, someone that can take over from the wing. They do struggle. I think that's what they have from Love. To me, for this, as crazy as it sounds, I could see Arizona losing to New Mexico or Nevada more than I could see them losing to Michigan State. As crazy,
I agree.
I could see them losing one of these games.
It's about matchups too. With a lot of these, with all of these, it's about how these teams match up with each other. And I absolutely agree. New Mexico and Nevada are 2 very scary teams in this bracket. Really scary.
I mean, let's face it, Purdue. What, they lost 4 games in a row now in the dance.
Yeah,
just put it through right here.
Yeah, I know, right?
So obviously Purdue, no one's going to get through Edie. Next one, we got Utah State, TCU. Interesting game. My 2 cents is TCU likes to play fast, doesn't shoot that many threes, and it's a Dixon squad that doesn't defend the rim well. That's very weird for a Dixon squad. They usually defend the rim and post well. Utah State plays everything through Ozobor, their big man. If he gets into foul trouble, that's going to be a huge issue for Utah State. I'm worried about TCU's guards being able to pressure Utah State's guards and some turnover. I'm really leaning TCU here, but this is a game I've gone back and forth because if they can't get Utah State's big man into foul trouble, because TCU has been so bad defending the post and the rim this year, I could see Utah State winning it here. But I'm going to give credit to TCU playing in the Big 12 and have them go through.
Yeah, I have no problem either way. Just give a little love to Utah State and, you know, how well the head coach who came over from Montana State brought a couple of the players from Montana State over. Shows you how quickly you can change things in basketball versus even in football when, you know, especially with the transfer portal, you get a few guys in.
Something to remember, and maybe this affected how poorly they played in the Mountain West. The worst kept secret in college basketball, Sprinkle, their coach, is going to Washington next year.
Yeah. Yep.
So, you know, I doubt that will play a factor when you have a team like this, but, you know, something to think about. These are college kids. Next one, you know what? I have a bet in this one. We got McNeese State against Gonzaga. What do you think, my friend?
Man, so McNeese shoots over 39% from three as a team. That's 7th in the country. If you're just looking at the basic matchup of these two teams, the one thing that jumps out is that Gonzaga is not great defending the three, and McNeese State is very good shooting the three. So right off the bat, that's one matchup that you look at in a game where the spread is, you know, 7-ish. So Gonzaga laying a big number, but they could be facing a deficit from the 3-point line right off the bat, facing a team that's more prolific from them. Now, one thing that does kind of flip back to the Gonzaga positive is Nembhard's playing really well right now. Really well. And Watson. So they do have some experience. But I will say, this isn't the same type of Gonzaga team with that high level talent, NBA talent, right? Prospects, top tier talent. There are some good college players, but this is one that I went back and forth with. And the only reason why I'm not 1000% all in on McNeese is that I do think this is becoming one of the kind of popular upset picks because people see, like we do, the smaller schools that shoot really well right off the bat, that gives them an advantage in a game like this. If they're a good 3-point shooting team and you know they shoot it, how to get their shots off, well, boom, they're going to have a chance against Gonzaga. And there was, a month ago where Gonzaga was a bubble team?
Yeah.
And now they're a 5? And you had said that they maybe even should have been a 6?
This should be BYU, but BYU cannot play on Sundays. We need to remember it. BYU got so lucky that that's the way it played off because, look, I would not want to face this McNeese State team. We have
especially if you were BYU, even more, I think, for BYU with the way they play too, right? Because McNeese State would play right into BYU style. They would be just going up and down and back and forth. And if BYU was just a little bit cold, maybe Gonzaga has the athletes here still, even despite what I'm saying, like maybe their guards. Because I think one of the things I was looking at and reading McNeese State is they want to try to turn you over too, right? They want to try to speed you up. And Gonzaga's maybe not going to do that. Like they may not be turning the ball over a whole lot. So that may be another interesting matchup where, you know, square peg, round hole. Somebody's got to zig when the other zags. I'll be watching that. And then McNeese shooting versus Gonzaga defending the 3. But I do have a couple different brackets, and one of them I have McNeese State winning 2 games.
Look, I bet them plus 6.5.
Let's put them on. Put them on.
5. Top
Move
100
with McNeese.
Defense, 39% from 3, 8th best in the country. You know, this is the equation. Good offense, Gonzaga with a bad defense. They do give up a lot of threes. Zags are really thin. They're bad at defending 3. Look, I think McNeese State gets it done here.
Let's do it.
This game is in altitude, you know, and Gonzaga is thin. So that's something we need to remember when we're talking this out. Next game, and obviously some big news broke a couple hours ago. The point guard, McCullough, out for Kansas. Huge move. For me, I locked this one in early. I did the 8.5 and plus 315 for Samford. So we both have Samford moving on here. Just
So that's another one of those crazy 12-13s, right? Where you got McNeese versus Samford. And this might be a spot where a lot of people have it, but Samford's going to try to speed you up as well. They're going to pressure you. They play some bucky ball. And this Kansas team, honestly, with a banged up McCullough, with McCullough out, with a banged up Dickinson, they're just not nearly as talented as most Kansas teams.
If they were healthy, they're still thin. They don't go that deep. This game is played in altitude. Samford goes 10 deep, top 10 effective field goal percentage for them, and 3-point percentage field goal. Look, historically, Kansas has struggled when you press them. No, it has been good when you press them, but they don't have the guard play that they've had in years prior, and we need to remember that when looking at this. I think Samford gets it done.
Yep.
Next game, and here's a little trivia question for everybody. Dana Altman, best coach ATS at 71.4% in March. But, you know, we're picking games through, and picking is different than gambling. South Carolina, who surprised a lot of people in the SEC, but Oregon is finally healthy, has the advantage at the guard position. South Carolina plays slow. They take a lot of threes, something I look for. Dante, the 6'11 big man of Oregon, I think South Carolina is going to struggle defending him. When South Carolina hit their peak during the season, opposing teams were shooting less than 30% from three. We need to remember that when they went on that little win streak, seeing how teams were shooting. Once the regression got back to the norm, they did struggle a little bit. I don't know. This is another coin flip game for me.
I mean, it's a pick-em game, basically, right? I think South Carolina's.
I think both these teams have great coaches. I think South Carolina is a little bit better on the defensive end, though.
Yeah, I think I trust South Carolina a little bit more. They've got a veteran backcourt. And Dante is the type of guy who you can get into foul trouble.
Yeah.
And if he gets into foul trouble, then you can completely neutralize Oregon, because he's the difference maker. And he didn't play. He played well the maybe like the last third of the season. I'd say that overall his year was a little disappointing. Just kind of expecting him to take another step, especially early in the year, that he didn't. So I have no problem taking South Carolina here.
Creighton, Akron, you are very high in Creighton. Why don't you tell us why you have them?
Yeah, Cockburner, Shireman, Alexander, all back from the near Final Four last year. So those three guys, they combined to score 53 of the 80 points, which is great because you've got a three-headed monster, and they're different players too. You've got a big who's 7-footer who he can match up with the good bigs from other teams. So just think about this bracket where you are, and if you have to go up against a guy like an Edey, right? Or, later if you have to face a team like a UConn in the championship, you can match up there. They have experience. They're well coached. They're top 25 in offense and defensive efficiency. They have a really good defense and good guards. Also guys like Ashworth, and then Mason Miller can, hit threes. Ashworth can also, it's like they have 4 or 5 guys that they get the bulk of their production from. And so they're not deep, but they're so top heavy, Eric, that it doesn't really bother me because they don't want to be going 9 or 10 deep. They're going to be like, they're 3 or 4 guys are going to be playing 38 minutes most nights if they're in close games. This team, I think, is pretty well spotted also because kind of looking at the teams around them, you and I weren't really too high on the teams that will probably be their next matchup. We were kind of hemming and hawing about both Oregon and South Carolina. Oregon maybe with Dante, but again, you have a guy like Cockburner who can at least neutralize that. He can step out a little bit and make life difficult for Dante. So I think they're drawn well in here to get through 2 games.
Akron really good defensively, doesn't shoot the 3-point well. I mean, I think that's going to be their downfall here because Creighton is substantial. You can, if you play a good 3-point shooting team, you can beat Creighton. Akron this year just doesn't have it. Is a big number. I wouldn't be surprised if they covered, but I think Creighton gets it through. This game to me, I think whoever it is, it's looking like it's going to be Colorado State. Texas is too athletic, I feel. And when you look at the athletes that are going to have Mad Max Abrams, I don't think Colorado State is going to have anyone that's going to be able to slow him down. We've seen in years past when he played at Oral Roberts, led him to the Sweet 16. he can carry a team. And in a game that could be, if Colorado State is able to control the pace, a half-court game, I want the best playmaker. So I think Texas is going to get it through here.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I actually, when they say that the bracket, they don't set these things up for storylines and stuff, right? With Barnes,
Rick Barnes, Tennessee.
And honestly, they have, and he as a coach, he's always had an affinity for not delivering, for getting knocked out early. And this, if you're him, and you by this point, you have to know that, and that has to be something that's going in your head. We're all humans, we're not robots. So by now he's thinking, damn man, I've had some good teams and we've got knocked out early. And then this is a good team we have. We're a 2 seed. Oh my God, we win that first game, and then we got to go play against Texas and Asmus. You know what I mean? A guy who has wanted to be
before. He's done it before, and he's been playing great. I'm not gonna lie. In my bracket, I have Tennessee winning it all.
You have Tennessee winning it all.
I have Tennessee winning it all right now.
Woo! Sell us on Tennessee. Talk to us.
So my thing is this: they have the big in Adu, they have the guard in Ziegler, they have Connect who can get a buck in the half court, which is their downfall last year, and number 25, whose name I'm of course spacing on. He's a good wing defender and he can make threes. And he's going to be left open. So I just kind of feel like adding Connect there when you have the guy that can launch, you have the NBA guy, the guy that's going to be a top 15 pick, you have the big, you have the guard, they have the equation parts. My biggest worry with them is Rick Barnes.
Yeah, that's what concerns me.
I don't think that Texas coach, whose name I'm spacing on, is going to be able to take advantage of what Tennessee can't do. So
this was where we will zig a little bit, because I talked about how much I like Creighton and you obviously like Tennessee. So I went Texas.
You're the guest here, so we'll go with you, buddy. You're the guest here, we'll go with you.
There we go. So Texas, I had beating Tennessee in the Battle of Barnes, and then I had Creighton, who I had pointed out, who I just think is so deep, so balanced offensively and defensively. I think they'll be able to get through against Texas. And so yeah, I had it set up where I had a Creighton versus Purdue. Purdue would be then playing the winner of the McNeese-Samford that we had. So I think Purdue would get by them. And it does feel like a good path for Purdue to get as deep of a run as they've recently had. I had Purdue and Creighton in the Elite Eight there in the Midwest final.
My 2 cents in this game, I do think TCU has the athletic guards to make Purdue uncomfortable. For all the Purdue games, it depends how they call against Edey. I mean, Edey's move is one step, elbow to the guy's chest, and he goes up.
Yep.
That's basically all his post moves. Very bad defending the pick and roll. I don't think TCU, because they are bad defending the post, can get through with that. Stanford, if you can shoot threes, you can beat them. McNeese, 8th best in the country shooting threes. I think they'll get through.
Because I think for Purdue, where it seems like we both were on the same page, is for Purdue, the teams like that in the first couple rounds, they're probably just going to overwhelm them. But whenever they catch a team that's just well-balanced, it can beat you, that has a good offense and a good defense and has multiple guys they can throw at you, and a guy that can at least make life somewhat difficult on Edey, that's the template to beat them. And there are plenty of teams that have that template. I just don't think they'll catch them in the first 2 or 3 rounds, maybe.
And McNeese, they're going to make Edey play in an unfamiliar way. We saw that last year against Fairleigh Dickinson. They're going to draw him away. This could be interesting. I think Wade is a great coach, but you have Purdue here, so we'll go with Purdue. Creighton, Purdue, give it to me. What do you think?
Yeah, this is where Creighton, to me, is just a better basketball team. They're by metrics, and they haven't been quite as dominant, but the things that I look for, the balance that they have, the ability to play very good lockdown defense. This team was 1 play away from a Final Four last year, so they're well coached, they're experienced, they can have 3 or 4 different guys on the team score 20 and beat you in that way. Not like what we're going to see from Purdue, where I think if I'm any team playing Purdue, I make the other guys beat me, right? You make sure that Purdue's guards and Purdue's wings have to beat you. And if Edey gets 15 to 20, that's fine. You just make sure Edey doesn't get 30 to 35, and get all the rebounds and putbacks. And I think in this bracket, I think Creighton is the team that's the most well-balanced that can beat them.
Now,
and I would have picked Tennessee if I didn't like Creighton. I would pick Tennessee over Purdue as well. I think Tennessee is more balanced. Like, I just worry so much about a team that is so centrally focused around a guy like Edey. They're a little bit better than they have been in past years, to where, some others can jump up and have big games. But once you get into the Elite Eight and they're playing the other best teams, that's when I'm going to be really worried about their guards and their non-Edey players.
Now we go to the South. We got Houston, Logwood. Look, even though Houston's banged up, I'll tell you what, our friend XFL Jim is a huge Logwood fan. He bets them pretty much every time, but I think Houston's going to get through here. Next one right here, Nebraska, Texas A&M. Look, I've been saying this forever. Texas A&M makes shots. This is the best team in the country. I do have a Final Four future on them. Wade Taylor and Bradford, two guards that can create. One of the better rebounding teams. I think third best rebounding team in the country, best offensive rebounding team in the country. Are Nebraska's guards physical enough to keep up to them? But the thing I'm worried about with A&M is this, and we saw it last year when they played Penn State. They give up a lot of three-pointers with the way they play defense, and you're playing a Nebraska team that can stroke it from deep.
Yep. So, Texas A&M, terrible offense, number one offensive rebounding in the country, right? So that's what they get.
Should be better because you have two guards that can create. You know what I mean? They've just underachieved all year.
But they get extra chances, which is nice, and that's huge in tournaments. So if those guys just play a little bit better to their ceiling and shoot a little bit better, that raises their ceiling. Nebraska is number 223 in the country in offensive rebounding. Then you pointed it out. They're going to be shooting a ton of threes, and they're led by really fun player named Tominaga, who's out there stroking it from three. So, yeah, this one was a tough one, and as expected, it's like I think a 1.5 point spread. I wasn't strong opinion either way. It sounds like if A&M played Houston, you would bet A&M in that game.
Yeah, I would, but I'm worried about them getting through here.
Getting through there.
Yeah, let's do A&M. Screw it. I like Wade Taylor.
Because of that, I think we put them through because you think they have a ceiling enough to beat Houston. I don't know if Nebraska does, or I don't know if I would pick Nebraska in that game. I'm not even saying I would pick A&M, but I would be more willing to bet A&M.
In this matchup right here, if Nebraska gets through, their point guard, whose name I'm spacing on right now, the lefty kid, he can't play. He's going to have to sit for long durations because he's not physical enough to keep up with Houston. We've seen this matchup before. Texas A&M played like crap at the beginning of the season. This game was in Houston. It was a what is it called? A neutral site, even though it was in Houston. Wade Taylor almost effed around and led Texas A&M back, and they're in a position to win the game. I think Texas A&M is very live there. But before I get into that, JMU, Wisconsin. Look, I have a bet in this one. I'm doing it. Wisconsin allows a ton of threes, and JMU is making 9 threes per game, shooting 37% from the year. Which Wisconsin team are we going to see? Are we going to see the Chucky that we saw in the Big Ten tournament when he was balling out of control? Or are we going to see regular season Chucky where he's like, I'm going to regular season Chucky. JMU top 80, both offense and defense. JMU, believe it or not, is a better rebounding team. They are elite defending the three. If Wisconsin, it's simple math. If Wisconsin's scoring twos, JMU's hitting three. Simple math. They don't turn over the ball. Edwards and Bickerstaff can create, are legit. This isn't your typical Wisconsin team. I'm on JMU here, plus 5.5.
I'm also
plus 200.
I have them winning. Put JMU on. They lost to 2 teams this year. They lost once to the same team, and they lost one other team. They have a 13-game winning streak.
Yeah.
Yep, and They have the longest winning streak in the nation right now. And I know this is a very like simple way of looking at it. This team wins a lot, and they're playing a team that loses a lot. Right? Just in a very basic sense, this is a team that has 3 losses. They're playing against a Wisconsin team that is still highly regarded in a lot of metrics, but they lost 13 games this year. And
it's not your typical Wisconsin team. It's just not. Next game, we got Duke, Vermont. I have my 2 cents about this Duke team. I did not bet them in this game. I didn't bet anything in this game. Where's your head with this Duke, Vermont team?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have Duke moving. I didn't love Duke this year. I didn't have a strong opinion with,
not physical.
With Vermont, but no, they're very soft, and they're not physical, and they should be so much better executing down the stretch, and they're just not. And that has to do with the physical too.
Yeah. Anytime they play anyone that will punch them in the mouth, they don't punch back. They don't have that center.
So this is probably a spot where, like, I kind of feel like Purdue with them also, and they can probably just beat up on teams that they're just more talented than. But exactly like you were pointing out, if they where they are located with a team like a Houston or a Texas A&M, if they were to run into either of those teams, I'd pick either of those teams against Duke.
Next game, Texas Tech, NC State. NC State.
5 games in 5 days, man.
They have the legs. You know what I mean? Big DJ balling out of control. But I really think the important thing we need to monitor is the health of Texas Tech, namely Washington. If Washington is there 100%, he's going to be able to limit Burns. NC State outside the top 50 offense and defense. I think it was a good run, but I think they're going to get tired. I don't think they're going to have the legs. I think Texas Tech is finally healthy. I have Texas Tech coming through.
Yeah, I agree. I also have Texas Tech.
Next one, really interesting matchup for the fact that Oklahoma likes to play a lot of zone, and they're playing a young team. And if this young team is in the spotlight for the with the big lights on, what are they going to do? Are they going to shit their pants, excuse my language, or are they going to rise to the occasion? Trey Townsend, tough matchup for Kentucky. Oklahoma, look, they played Ohio
Oakland.
State.
I think you said Oklahoma, right?
Oakland. Played Ohio State, Illinois, Drake, Xavier. Kentucky is young, but I just think they have too much of the it factor, too many people that can create. I will take Kentucky here. I think they get through. What say you?
Yeah, we're going to ask the same question about them as we did about some of the teams like Alabama that have really great offenses, but can they defend? Kentucky is the number 1 3-point shooting team in the country. Reeves, Dillingham, Shepard, Edwards, Trey Mitchell, they are explosive. Can they defend enough? I don't think it will matter in this game. And of all of the teams with the really good offenses and bad defenses, I think they can maybe go the farthest, but I still don't think that would be winning it all. Like, I still think they could win maybe 3 or 4 games, but they'll probably hit a point where they're just going to play teams that are a little more veteran, a little more balanced. But, dude, I'm not worried about them offensively really at all. Like, I think they're going to get their shots, but they have a tough time stopping others as well.
I have a hot take for you guys.
Let's hear it.
Yale will make the Elite
Eight.
Or I have them going far in my bracket. I know the Ivy League traditionally struggles, but Princeton, Yale have historically been strong. I remember last year's Princeton getting to the Sweet 16.
Eric likes Yale.
Bold. I know it, but never count out. Look, Yale is tough, dude. They have that 7-footer and Wolf that can create advantages. I think that game against Auburn, it wouldn't surprise me if we look up and it's like, oh shit. Yeah.
At half or something like that, it's close. My only concern is Auburn is a tough number 4.
Yeah.
Just based on like the metrics this year, they were like the best of the number 4 seeds. So if you would have told me like we're just talking about Duke, I would have 100% taken Yale in a spot like that over Duke.
Yeah,
I don't like
guards don't turn over the ball. I agree. I mean, I think Yale could easily make it.
Or even like Kansas is another one of the 4, right? Compare the number 4 Kansas, who's super banged up. That would be my only concern with Yale, is that Auburn was like a top 10 team by a lot of metrics. So they were probably an overseeded 4. They may be just a little too much for them. But if they were in a different spot, and like we said, I wouldn't be shocked if it's closer than, absolutely a game where Yale covers.
Next game here. Look, we got Florida, we got Colorado. Important to remember, Florida's big man, Hamilton, is out. Florida usually has the rebounding advantage. I'm going to say this. I love this Colorado game.
If Colorado wins, they're going to beat Florida. Or I think I have them beating Florida.
They're going to be drafted. 2 guys that are going to be in the lotto. This team is elite. They have Lampkin underneath who can rebound and can defend Florida's bigs. Florida isn't going to have enough time to put in a game plan, losing their center. And we saw them struggle against Auburn when he went down. We're going to have Colorado go through here. Marquette, Western Kentucky. Interesting game here. Connect should be back. Western Kentucky likes to play fast, but they're outside the top 150 defending. I don't think they're going to be able to generate enough stops. I think Connect being out and Jones kind of leading Marquette in the Big East was huge for them. So I think Marquette's going to get through here.
Yeah, I think so too. I worry following this against, like, if Colorado were to play Marquette, Colorado's ceiling, they could beat them, especially if Colic is not 100%, is not completely ready. Like him not being 100%, that's fine for them in the first game. And maybe even against Florida, if they were to play Florida. But Colorado, if it's Marquette, Colorado, I'm betting Colorado in that game.
Oh, 100%. I'm definitely doing that. Top of the bracket, we got Houston, Texas A&M. I really want to take Texas A&M here. Houston, the one thing is with Houston, they got 4 guys that are significantly banged up. The point guard matchup should be an elite here. Taylor can get it going. Bradford can as well. Texas A&M has the rebounding to keep Houston off the glass, and they've played them before. They're not going to be timid. I think Texas A&M can actually shock the world and get past Houston right here.
Move them on. Move them along. I don't love A&M as much as you do, but I have no problem there. Like Houston, in this bracket, they're probably one of your safer choices here, but it depends on how you're building your bracket. And the health of Houston. I think when they're with Sheed, with Roberts, Francis, Cryer, Sharp, they're super deep. But in a game like that against Texas A&M, we talked about the offensive rebounding. They'll be able to get some extra buckets in a game where they're, going to be an underdog. Move A&M along.
We got JMU. We got the Fun Belt against Duke. Duke is backcourt-wise is an athletic step up from Wisconsin. That is my worry here.
Yeah, I think this would be a good matchup for Duke.
So we're gonna have Duke.
They're not that sort of tough, what we were talking about, game. So as much as we don't love Duke, they still have a couple nice matchups here. And like in this game, I would pick A&M in the Duke matchup there.
Oh, I'm going to pick A&M here just because we said it before. Duke is soft. They aren't physical at all. Filipowski is playing the 5. He's going to get eaten alive. Kelly, who transferred over from Northwestern, in my eyes, has been a huge disappointment. I think they get through here. Bottom half here, look, I think if Kentucky can get through Oakland, the nerves are going to come down. You have all these guards. You have how many guards are going to get drafted in the NBA they have. You have the coaching matchup. I think Kentucky is going to get through here.
Yep.
Bottom of the bracket. If this is Colorado, Colorado's beating Marquette.
I think so too. And I have no problem making that because I had Kentucky beating Marquette anyways without Kolick. So I would be fine picking an upset right there because I think Kentucky would move along anyways.
And that's one of my futures, Colorado 11-1 to make the Sweet 16.
Nice.
Also have them making the Final Four too, but I'm going to take a little bit of the Sweet 16. Here in a little SEC matchup, A&M against Kentucky. I believe they split the season, each winning on their home court here. My eyes here, I think this is where Texas A&M shooting hits the wall.
Yeah.
Historically,
Kentucky's a little too much for them.
Yeah.
Just offensively.
And they have the physical bigs not to be allowed to be punched. We'll take Kentucky here.
Yeah.
That brings us to our interesting Final Four. We have Auburn, Arizona, Kentucky, and Creighton. Auburn, Arizona. Who are you going with, my man?
My final on my bracket. Actually, this is really close to our Final Four. The only one that's different and I have Kentucky, Houston, and two different brackets, so we're pretty close. I've got Auburn. I've got Creighton. I've got Auburn versus Creighton. I have Creighton winning the whole thing.
Woo!
I bet Creighton at 26-1 in the future also to win the whole thing.
There you have it. We have Auburn, Arizona, Kentucky, and Creighton.
Tell me about some of the futures you have on like teams to win it all, or maybe anything that you bet recently.
Futures that I have to win it all. I have a lot of Final Four futures. I have Texas.
Okay, yeah, or Final Four, 16s. What are some of your plays?
I have Texas A&M. I got them at 25-1 to make it the Final Four. Colorado 40-1 to make it to the Final Four. I have New Mexico 100-1 to win it all. I have Tennessee 14-1 to win it all. Then I just did some Sweet 16 bets. I have Colorado 11-1, JMU plus 750, Grand Canyon plus 600, McNeese 550, and New Mexico plus 240. I'll probably add the team. I'm probably going to add Kentucky. I think Kentucky could kind of get going.
They've got a high ceiling, right?
Yep. If not now, when I think the draw I think in terms of draw, I think it kind of plays
it's great for them.
For them. And I'll probably add an Arizona future if I can find a decent price to them. I want over 10-1 in Arizona. Anything less than 10-1 in Arizona, I definitely is something I don't want to go. I'm pulling it up right now. They're 12-1. So at a 12-1 price, I'll take an Arizona. 22-1 for Kentucky. Those are tempting. I'll probably add those.
Yeah.
Gino, I'd like to thank you for coming on, talking some college basketball. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you on social media and when your podcast, that's when G Said podcast, is coming out this week.
Yeah, if you follow me on Twitter, it's me, Gino B, probably the best place to get all the information. We'll have a podcast coming out. Erik and I are going to talk about the bracket. There's a big racing day coming up. It's Louisiana Derby Day this weekend at Fairgrounds. It's also the Jeff Ruby Stakes and a bunch of good races at Turfway Park. So we'll preview those, talk about everything going on in the world of wrestling, getting closer to WrestleMania. Chad Cooper joins me to do that. So podcast will come out a little early this week. I'm actually going to record and have everything out on Wednesday so everybody can listen before the tournament, and then kick back on Thursday and get ready for one of the best days in all of sports with 16 games starting at around noon Eastern.
I'm really looking forward to it. Make sure to give my boy Gino a follow. We'll be back next week with Wade from Wade's Bets, previewing the Sweet 16 and sharing some MLB futures. Make sure to check that out. And let's cash some tickets. Let's make some money. Until next week, boys and girls.